Good afternoon, LEC community. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Ask an Educator. My name is Susana Lizarraz. I am the Deputy Director of the Latinx Education Collaborative. And as you know, our mission is to increase Latino representation in K through 12 classrooms. I'm so excited to be here today with someone who wears several hats, and this person will tell you a little bit about that in a second. Without further ado, I'll bring up Carlos Olivas. Carlos, how are you?
Good. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'm so excited to learn more about your story and from the little bit I know already, share that story with our community.
Yeah. Again, I was nominated by Delia. I know her from Harmon High School. I actually graduated from there in
Okay.
2001. Went to play college soccer for a little bit, and then came back to help as an assistant coach for the girls program under Eddie Mendez. And I was able to fall in love with coaching and helping young students out, especially in the classroom. More than anything, it's sports is a way that has helped me get through life and the community and the upbringing that I had as well. So I wanted to, pay it forward to everybody around me. I was at Harmon till 2017, coaching high school. I had taken over the boys program as well. We made it to two state tournaments, got
Wow.
a second place finish and a fourth place finish, which kind of helped get my name out there to bigger clubs and everything to do that. So I was able to help out at Soccer Nation Legacy FC, and now I'm at KC Fusion Coaching Club and at Mill Valley High School as a paraprofessional and as an assistant soccer coach over there. So it's been quite the journey from something that honestly I never expected to do, and when it happened, like I said, I really enjoyed it, and to this day I just keep, it's a passion. I really enjoy it, and my mom always said that if you find something that you love, you'll never feel like you're going to work
Mhm.
every day. So, and
Mhm.
and I'm living proof of it. So yeah.
I love that. I mean, there's several parts of your story so far that resonate with me, and I think with a lot of people in our community. First and foremost, it's kind of going back to the neighborhood and the community where you live to do some of your work.
Right.
Was that a conscious decision for you? Like, is that something that you wanted to purposely do?
At first, I didn't. I mean, I didn't know where I was going. I was pursuing something more in engineering.
Mm,
And then, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 13.
mm,
So I knew that I always wanted it. Originally, I had plans to go to Newman University in Wichita. With my dad being, the only one driving, me being the eldest, he had to work the shifts that he had to work and stuff. He had to sacrifice. My mom needed rides to chemotherapy.
mm,
So it was a decision that I didn't even think about. It was something there that kept me here, and so while doing that, I found that I enjoyed the teaching aspect of coaching, and my mom was and my parents, both my parents are very, very big supporters. My mom passed away in 2015.
mm.
My dad is still and my sisters are and family are very big supporters of what I do. So it's something that when I was back in high school, if you tell me I'd be a coach or a teacher someday, I never would have thought it because I just had different aspirations at the time. But everything works out the way that it's supposed to work out at the end, I believe so.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure. Well, first of all, sorry about your mom. I think, before we hopped on, I told you about how we keep this show because the stories that are told resonate with folks, right? And I think something that you mentioned is staying home, right? Instead of going off to what were your original plans. I think that's a common story in Latinidad, and in particular, it's a story actually of mine as well. I stayed behind and studied here in Kansas City to take care of my mom, and so for youngsters, to kind of hear that sometimes things happen and it things work out, for folks usually, right? So okay, so you came back and you taught a little bit in the neighborhood where you grew up.
Right.
Mill Valley,
Yep.
that's in KCK?
That's in Western Shawnee. This is
Okay,
my second year coaching there, my first year teaching there as a
okay,
paraprofessional. So one of the mentor that I had while I was at Harmon, actually when I was playing at Harmon, the head coach at Wyandotte High School, Jason Pendleton, we and him got it. We he's always been my mentor. When I started coaching, he was at I believe Lawrence Free State or Blue Valley Southwest, and I reached out to him, being a young coach, seeing who can I inspire or who can I follow, who's successful that I can kind of like follow. And he was the one that took me under his wing, and so he's the one that had brought me to KC Fusion and also to Mill Valley High School. He's the head coach, and coincidentally enough, like this past fall, we won the state championship in Kansas 6A. We had just moved up to 6A, and we just came off of that. The girls, they finished state runner up the year before, and we actually start a week from Monday. We start for their run for the state championship as well. So it's been it was one of the moves that I didn't know I was ever going to do. I always wanted to, again, staying home, right, being here for our community.
Mhm.
Um, it's club soccer costs a lot of money. It
Mhm.
really does, and one thing that we didn't have here is licensed coaches that could teach the kids here, you
Mhm.
know, give them the same lessons that are being taught elsewhere, if you will. I mean, in our middle school at USD 500, they offer middle school soccer. I think it's because that, that's the way for our middle schoolers to be able to play. You go elsewhere, they're all playing club soccer.
Mhm.
So before I left here, I had reached out to my godfather, and then I told him I felt like a bit of a sellout
Mhm.
leaving here. But he told me, he said, Miko, if just imagine that kids that look like you and I see coaches that look like you and I in other positions, and that'll motivate them to not only want to try out and play there, but also, give them that if he can do it, why can't we? Right, to
Mhm.
kind of lead the way, and that really stuck to me. And so, even now, I still try to help out as much as I can. There's a couple of coaches that when I was at Harmon, Josh Wickler, he started a new team, a new foundation that I'm hoping to work close with to help out. I've helped that at Turner High School before COVID hit.
Mhm.
COVID hit, and so then that kind of took stuff away. But within our community, I want to help out as much as I can, paying it forward. The good thing is, I still have good rapport and relationship with the kids that I used to coach back then. Now that they're adults, right?
Mhm.
They're, I'm constantly talking to them about when I see them at Soccer Nation, where I run practice sometimes, or when I see them at Compass Mineral and outdoor, they come out between practices and they come out and they talk to me. I mean, these are kids that I used to coach in high school. Now they have their own families, they're married, they have kids and everything. And one thing that Jason, my mentor, told me is that it'll be a certain time when you look back and you're like, wow, look how far they've come. And now it's the point where actually in one of my club teams, I'm coaching one of the girls that I'm coaching. I coached her mom at Harmon, and now she's playing for me at Fusion. So
Wow.
that's pretty awesome, just seeing how I seen her mom play and how I see her play, and just everything that comes together. You kind of have to take a step back, like, man, how long have I really been doing this? All right, but when you're having so much fun doing it, it just flies by, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Well, congratulations on the accomplishments that you all have had, that you've had in more than one place, right? But with state championships coming up, and
right,
I know that sports is often kind of an outlet for a lot of our students who maybe don't consider education as a place for them.
right,
And I really like what your padrino said, right? About um, there are going to be places where we need to be in the room in order for kiddos and for youth to see us and say, oh, okay, I belong here too, right? Because you look like me, your name sounds like mine, or you speak
right.
my language, right? Have you seen a little bit of that yet? Or, yeah?
Most definitely. And the one thing that I like, and again, Jason, going back to Jason, he's the executive director of Fusion.
Mm,
And from what I've seen in other clubs, there's a lot of major clubs in Kansas City, but from what I've seen, we have a lot of Latino coaches
mm,
in Fusion, and it's funny because it's a lot of guys that I grew up with playing soccer with that were
mm,
older that I looked up to and stuff like that. But yeah,
mm,
you see, especially, and again, me being within the club, I see it more. There's a lot more Latino coaches. There's a lot more Latino players and Latina players. Well, which is important, because
yeah.
even then there was a difference there when I was at Harmon, just how many more Latino players there was than Latinas, and now you're seeing a lot more that is catching up in the women's game too, and I think that's absolutely wonderful, especially me having twin daughters,
Mhm.
that are 13, and my son being 17. So it's great to see that they're also involved in the sport that I love, and that's been good to me. Like you said, I'm not going back to almost. I was 13 when I was diagnosed. I didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
Soccer was my outlet. Soccer was my savior. So, I'm
Mhm.
trying to have that there for kids, especially when I was at Harmon. It was one of those, I think the league or the district GPA was a certain amount to play. Mine was always higher.
Mm.
Mine was always higher, because I told them, you're a scholar athlete, you're not an athletic scholar. Scholars comes first. And I told them, that's the thing. One day, hopefully you'll thank me about why I pressured you guys so much to get the grades that we had. With my last couple of years there, I was with the NSCAA, and I was the United Soccer Coaches of America, but we were academic All-Americans because of our team GPA was above a 3.25 GPA.
Wow.
So, it was something that, as you know, like nobody could take that away from you. Get a high school diploma, college diploma, nobody can take that away from you ever. So that's something that I stress with them, and I stress with my own kids. Like I said, the one thing about Harmon is I was looked at more of like a big brother father type. And so I try to fill that role in as much as I could. Me being a big brother in my family, I'm the eldest, and I got two younger sisters, so it was one of those that I kind of utilize that. Stuff I've learned from coaches when I played in high school and in college, whether good or bad, what to do, what not to do, how to communicate, how not to communicate. It's constant learning, just like it is in the classroom. Going into a classroom where I'm not used to being in a different part of town. It's thankfully, I've been welcome, open arms at Mill Valley from everybody, even before. That it's you don't know, it's uncomfortable. I don't know how it's going to be. I'm used to being, I still live where I live. I live in KCK. Right? I still live there, where I grew up and everything. So for that community to open their arms to me as a coach and as a person and as a professional has been great, and that allows me to also tell my kids, like, look, it can be done as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's the importance of diversifying, right? And of seeing new places and new spaces, so that you're right, like even our own biological kids can see, that they can go to any space. They deserve to be in any space that they want to be in, right? I do want to back up. You talked about being the eldest in your family. Tell us a little bit about that, your upbringing. Where's your family from?
Yeah, of course. So I was born in Zacatecas, Fresnillo.
Okay.
And then my sister Tanya was born in Coahuila.
Okay.
And then my youngest sister, Adriana, she was actually born here. We came here. My dad, he gave up a really good job. He was an engineer in Mexico. He gave up a really good career to come here for us, to benefit, to live the American dream, right? To have the opportunity. So he came here, and then my mom, my sister, and I followed. I think we got here about 1988. And we've been here ever since. Tanya was born in 85. My sister Tanya was born in 92. Well, we've been here. I've been, the eldest. Like I said, once my mom was diagnosed, it was different for everybody. We had to grow up. My dad had put on a lot more responsibility. So did I. We all had to grow up a lot sooner than we thought we would have to. I think they gave my mom a couple months to live. She made it almost 20 years. Right, she made it to 2015. So she was on the 19th year. So my parents taught me a lot. My mom taught me how to survive. My dad, he gave me the work ethic that I needed. Anytime I feel, my mom never felt bad for herself ever. So why should I? Right? And she had a terminal disease, so it's one of those that, like, she said, everything in this world has a solution except death. Right? So keep going. Don't take any day for granted. Growing up in a Latino community, it's all about family first. That's why that's the way I was raised and brought up. So that's normal to me. Right? That's normal to me. So besides that, we all live close to each other. My dad, my sisters, and we live within, I don't know, probably a 5 to 10 mile radius. So it's crucial. And our extended family, they don't live too far for either. Like my cousin Sandra, she lives in the Mill Valley area. My cousin Denise, she lives out there in the Basehor Linwood area. So we're all close around here. My cousin Juan and Carlos, they both live in the Missouri area. They're Kansas City firefighters, Juan's a captain. So, they had the same kind of, my Theo came here and then they followed, right? And so it's one of those that our parents taught us the importance of family and sacrifice, and putting each other first and just working hard. So that's where I get it from. So to me, it's normal, right? That's what I seen growing up. So to me, when hey, you're doing this great job. Well, to me, it's normal. It's what I seen every single day, and what I
Mhm.
still see in my father to this day. So, and I'm trying to pass that on to my kids,
Mhm.
right? So,
Yeah, that work ethic, right? I mean, just like getting through any hurdle. I
mhm,
think my family's also from Mexico, and
mhm,
um, nothing ever feels impossible,
right,
right? Because
right,
it's you got to push harder, you got to go harder, and of course, there have been some times in life where it's like I need to learn to slow down. Right? I also need to learn to rest and take care of myself, but that
absolutely.
work ethic obviously has gotten us far.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's always go, go, go.
Hmm.
And sometimes we forget to live in the moment. I know for sure I forget to live in the moment.
Yep.
Right now, thankfully, we're on break. So I'm able to just kind of like, I feel like I should be doing something.
Yep.
Um, but there's nothing wrong with not doing nothing and spending time with your kids as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You got to take time and advantage when you can do that. I know. And I've told them, and they've been great because they know how busy I am with coaching and everything. But I've let them know, like, it's not always going to be this way.
Mm.
Right. I left my job that I was with for 13 years overnight to do this. So financially, I took a big hit. But at the end of the day, it's the right decision. I can do more of this that I love to do, and be able to travel with my teams. We're going in April. We're going to Oklahoma. We're going to Chicago. We're going to these other places that if I was still in my other job, there's just no way I'd be able to do it because I worked on weekends. Right. So it's
Yeah.
just one of those that, again, it'll work out the way it's supposed to work out, and always doing the right thing. I think at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it'll come back and benefit you. So yeah,
Something you're talking about that resonates and that I think a lot of us can relate to is that learning of work and passion, right? I think for our parents, and I don't know more specifically about yours, but I know mine had to work out of necessity and out of survival mode, right? And so it's kind of a blessing and such a privilege to get to a place in life where it's like, you know what, this is what I love to do. This is what I want to put my day to day into.
right.
So I commend you for that because it is difficult to
Appreciate
get
that.
out of that hustle mode, that
Yeah,
survival mode,
that's
and
exactly
really,
yeah. It takes time. I mean, I left in June. It's almost a year coming up, and for the longest, I couldn't allow myself. But then I remember that this is the reason that my parents sacrificed everything to come here.
hmm.
Right? They didn't want us to be, again, in survival mode our whole life. Right?
Yeah.
They want us to enjoy life because that's what it's for. You only get one.
Mhm, mhm.
Right? I mean, that's the most precious thing you give anybody is your time. Right?
Yeah.
So, and when you have that, the one thing I don't want to live with is regret.
Mhm,
I regret not doing this or not doing that. Obviously, with
mhm,
my son being older and I was still working at that job, it's different than with my daughters who are
mhm,
younger. Now I'm here where I could be there more in that way. So, it's yeah, it's the whole survival mode, and just being like, hey,
mhm.
enjoy the small victories too, not just the big ones. Right,
Yeah.
small ones. I mean, and you gotta enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
You forget sometimes that you're part of the journey that you're doing right now, because when you get to the end, now what?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your journey like as a student? You talked about how you planned on going into engineering, and you know, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, in high school, I had really good grades. It was just one of those things that I felt it was a slap in the face of my parents for them to
Mhm,
give up everything that they knew to come to a new country for me just to cruise through life. No, it was one of those that soccer and band was what had saved me. I was in middle school, so I was a percussionist. Even at Harmon at the time, we had Mr. Norman Daniels. Our band was hundreds deep. Our drum set. It was just fun to watch. It was fun to be part of. It was one of the things that if I could go back to high school, and I've told my kids this as well, it wouldn't be for soccer, it'd be for marching band and the band, just because of you know um, how I felt and everything I just enjoyed it so much. Building new relationships and friendships that to this day I still speak to a lot of them, and that's what I'm trying to encourage my kids to do, to get involved as much as you can, right? To make the relationships last. I know one of the things I tell all my players and students is, I don't care about the results. I care about. I mean, the thing with sports is it teaches life skills, right?
mhm,
10 years down the road, you're not going to remember the result of a game, but you're going to remember what you learned and how I made you feel or how you felt around this. right? Because
Mhm.
I mean, we're influenced. I was influenced by certain people. Mr. Daniels was one of them. I'm hoping that I'm a positive influence to somebody else, as much as they were to me. And all I'm doing is just being me,
Mhm.
right? And what doing what I think is right, and what isn't right, right? I try to eliminate that, but you never stop learning,
Mhm.
right? You never stop growing, whether it's personal development or just stuff that you're doing right now. So yeah,
Yes, and you talked about like just being you.
yeah,
I mean, what again? Like, what a privilege to do a job where you there's no learning curve, right? There's no right because you're good at it. You're just being you, and then you're good at it, right? And so, what a privilege to be in a situation like that, you know?
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And believe it or not, I've always been an introvert. So
Mhm.
me being a coach and having to, go to these coaching seminars, and even in, in the teaching part, I was like, you learn to not so much outgrow that, but you get in touch with the extrovert side, and now you start communicating with a lot of people. Right.
Mhm.
This last fall season, I was coaching with the high school and 4 club teams. I had over 100 players. That's over 100 families that I had communicated with as much as possible. It's been kind of a break now, and then I'll go from 5 teams to 4 teams coming up in the spring. But that club soccer, it's 11 months out of the year. So high school's about to start right now again, and thankfully, like one of the teams that I coach is I have twin daughters, so my older twin I get to coach her, and then my younger twin plays for the academy team too. So, it's yeah. I mean, that's when Jason asked me to come over to Mill Valley, like I almost didn't do it
Mhm.
out of fear,
Mhm.
right? It's out of fear. It's like I've been comfortable and good where I'm at with my community. Now I'm going to a completely different community. What am I going to do? Well, if I had said no, we wouldn't be talking right now,
Yeah.
right? It's one of those that high risk, high rewards. Take the risk. Again, regret's the worst thing that you could live with, right?
Mhm.
And I told them to him like, what do you expect from me going into coaching infusion and going to in the Mill Valley? He said, just keep doing what you're doing and be yourself.
Mhm.
After he said that, it made it so much easier.
Mhm.
I didn't because I mean, I don't know who else to be honestly besides myself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and like I think so many of us, particularly in the work of education or youth work, we have to push up against like a system, right? You have to put the system is built so strict and rigid and structured that like it has to be taught this way on this day at this time, right? And so to be in a youth work scenario where it's like just be you and be good at it,
right.
that's awesome.
Almost definitely. Yeah.
I'm super happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I know we've talked a little bit about some of the hurdles that you've had over the course of your life and over the course of your career. Like I said, we do this show for the purpose of, young educators or young folks who are wanting to get into youth work, maybe coaching, things like that, can see that there's the other side to some of those hurdles. So what's a hurdle that you've kind of had to experience over the last, through your career that you've had to get through and you've done it?
That's a good question. There's been quite a few. Nothing is ever perfect. There's always going to be some kind of pushback, or like my mom said, swimming against the tide.
Mhm.
That you have to do. I guess my first year when I took over the boys, in 2012, I wasn't welcomed, as
Mm.
much as I could have. And that team actually ended up making it to state tournament and got
Wow.
fourth place. And afterwards, I remember, we had lost the third place game in state, and I called my mom on the bus, and she knew I was upset just because the way the boys didn't play for me. And she said, look what you have accomplished, swimming against the current the whole season. And what ended up happening with that is the sophomores at the time, 2 years later, we ended up making it all the way to the state championship and losing to, Aquinas, who's, it's Aquinas, right? So, so it's one of those that, it was good to see that even though in that part and that hurdle and that opportunity, that obstacle, those younger kids were actually seeing how everything was being handled.
Mhm.
Um, just the way it was, and they wanted no part of that. They wanted to change, and that right there was what had already changed to make it so much easier for the rest of the remaining years that I had at Harmon. With the girls that I had been their coach for so long, it was, but then it wasn't until like 5 years later that I took over the boys program, which was something I always wanted to do because that used to be me.
Mhm.
Right, I used to play there. When I used to play my games, we were at the baseball field playing 3:30 varsity games. And by the time I had left at Harmon, it was now they had a turf field at the football field, and we were playing 7 p.m. every night for varsity games. So that to me was a huge turnaround. Um,
Mhm.
I revisited there this last fall when they had a game against Olathe Northwest, and it was just that was the first time I'd actually gone back to that stadium since I had left in
Mhm.
2017, and it was just it was wild. It was crazy seeing it. One of my former players is now an assistant coach for the boys side over
Oh,
there, so that
wow.
was really cool. And some of the employees that were there recognized me, and they came and said hi. So it's great to have still that connection there, even though I hadn't been there in so long.
Mhm.
Right? So yeah,
You talked about, feeling like, I think you used, you didn't feel like you fit in, or like, it felt like you were getting some pushback.
yep,
It's actually super common in these interviews is, folks talk about people who are very well qualified, right, to be in situations, positions,
right,
um, who get pushback.
yeah,
I think you and I know that sometimes that does have to do with the lack of representation, right?
yeah,
With
for sure,
people who maybe don't understand us as a culture, or and not that Latinos are all the same, right?
right,
But the lack of recognition, the lack of representation,
right,
that's where this comes in, right? Is for kiddos to see people like you, who are willing to kind of take on those hurdles to benefit them, right? Um, yeah, so that's super, super common,
yeah,
in these, unfortunately. So something that, our organization, as we're trying to increase Latino representation in schools, we found out that Latinos are actually the quickest to leave the classroom.
mm,
Um, of course, there's very few of us to begin with.
right,
We're less than 1%, or about 1% of educators. We're talking teachers here in Kansas City, in the Kansas City metro. And then we're also the quickest to leave.
right.
So tell me about what your thoughts are. Have you had experiences that make sense? What could change to better support us in schools? What are your thoughts?
And this is, I've come from again now where I'm at to where I was as far as where I was coaching, and
Hmm.
I'm sorry the majority of my stuff is coaching. That's what I've done longer than teaching,
Hmm.
right? But I just think it's all about not just the community, the parents, and the administration.
Hmm.
To me, where I was before, the community was great. The parents are great, especially on the men's side.
Hmm.
We were getting better on the women's side, but I think one of the things that I had left for too is just the lack of support and administration,
Hmm.
where I was to where I am now, where it's every day I see them in the hallways and they're always saying hello to me. I feel you feel welcome, right? It's about being welcome, um, with open arms instead of like, why am I here? Again, this goes back to if you're passionate about something, but you're not feeling again like you're being appreciated, right? If you're
Hmm.
not feeling like you're being appreciated for what you're doing, over
Hmm.
time you for sure burn out on that,
Hmm.
right? But I think I didn't know those stats. That's insane. Like
Yeah.
less than 1%. When
Mhm.
we definitely need more, Latino representation on the field, on the court, in the classroom,
Mhm.
above all else. Just so, and I think seeing more Latino coaches and stuff like that, seeing that hopefully we're paving the way for the youth to kind of follow in our footsteps
Mhm.
and get that from -1% to easily up to 10%, and then keep that growing. Right?
Yeah.
It could be something that it can be done. Why
Yeah.
not? Why not us? Right? Why
Mhm.
not us? So yeah,
I mean, and Latino students are the fastest growing
yeah,
demographic, right? And so when you're looking at um, the students who are looking at their next stage of life, right? They're planning their careers and what they're doing after high school. The more and more, and not just teachers, right? But when you have Latinos come in for career day, who are coaches, who are
right,
engineers, who are doctors and nurses, and all the different careers,
right,
to inspire them to be like, oh, they have a similar story to me. Like I can do that, right?
right,
Um, that's definitely something that we're striving for, of course, as an organization, but
right,
we're falling behind with Latino students really on the KCK side are over 50% Latino students, as you probably know.
Oh, for sure.
Over here on the KCMO side, we're about 30%.
Okay.
So we got a lot of work to do.
For
We
sure.
got a lot of work to do, and I appreciate, your commitment to. I'm not a big soccer fan,
Okay.
but I know that I know that extracurriculars, like you talked about band too, right? Like extracurriculars sometimes is the anchor for some
Right.
of our kids,
Right.
and so having that be a priority too, right?
Yeah.
Um, Despite how things are and the difficulty of things, I'm glad that sounds like your environment is a positive one. But when things get tough and when things get hard, what keeps you going?
It's a commitment that, again, it goes back to the sacrifice that my parents made.
Mm,
Right. No matter what I'm going through now, again, it doesn't compare to what they had to go through for
mhm,
us to be here. Right. It's always one of the, again, everything has a solution but death. Like my mom said, the work ethic and everything, it's just, why did I commit to this in the first place? Right.
mhm,
Why do I want to do this? Why did I give up everything to do this as well? Because at the same time, I'm trying to teach my kids too to follow their dreams.
mhm,
Right. And following your dreams isn't always a straight path. There's going to be a lot of mistakes. There's going to be a lot of failure, and people are afraid of failing. That's how you get better.
mhm,
Again, that goes back to sports and clubs and band and everything. It's just one of those that's what teaches you more than anything, life skills. What do you do when it's tough and you're losing? Do you give up? No, you got to continue. You have to
mhm,
continue because it'll pay off. You got to break through and you got to get through that. So, it's a promise I made to my parents. It's a promise I made to myself and to my kids. And, even then now thinking about it, the community, the community, like, why not? Why am I going to give up? You never know. You never know who you're inspiring just by being you,
right.
right? And when you've been doing it for so long, you just don't even think about it anymore, and you just do it. Sure, there's rough days, right? I mean, that's life, but again, it's not always the it's gonna get to a point where the bad days are gonna be so far and few between that when they do come, it makes you appreciate all the other good days that you have done.
Mhm,
Right? It's just a
mhm,
stage of life that you have to go through. So, and it's something that once you commit to something, just get it done, and before you know it, I left in, it's 2023 now, right? And I started back in 2008, so it's
wow.
time is flying, by. So, just keep working hard and just keep doing the right thing.
Mhm,
Keep doing the right thing. I think at the end of the day, it'll pay off. So,
mhm. And then Carlos, that's 15 years of classes of students, right?
yes,
Classes of kids and families, right? Like, and like you said, like now seeing some of them be the parents, like that's crazy
yeah.
to think that. That's awesome.
So stuff like that, I have to like really take a step back and be like, man, this is again. It's like, man, it's not like, man, it's only been 15 years. Like, man, it's already been 15 years that has passed by like that. That's crazy, But yeah, like I said, it's again, you gotta step back and smell the roses sometimes and
Yeah.
see what has been accomplished, not just within yourself, but even then, how far they've come.
Yeah.
Coming from a community to that. I mean, let's be honest, they don't have as many opportunities as the other communities, and that's where sports will kind of help them excel and put them in positions that they probably never thought they would be
Yep.
ever.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have one last question for
Yes.
you, and I ask this of everyone. If you would want your students, whether they be your players or your students in school, to know something every time they leave you, leave your, whether it's the end of a season or the end of a school year, what's that one thing you want them to know?
That's a really good question. I just want them to know that as far as me, like I've given 110% of
Mm,
everything to them, and I just hope that whatever they learn, because at the end of the day, I learn more from them than they learn from me.
mm,
Right? I mean, I was 15 years worth of athletes. Like you just learn different stuff, and I mean, I'm still friends again to this day with a bunch of them. But I just hope that they know that everything that I have done has come from the bottom of my heart.
mhm,
It's something that I hope that they will take and instill in whatever they do in whatever walks of life that they do. And like I said, I just always the one thing I've always said is to always do the right thing. So hopefully they think about that, when they're put in a situation where they have to choose between, what's easy and what's right.
mhm,
Right. So
mhm.
yeah.
I love that. And being educators working with youth,
Yeah,
you see them go through those
for sure.
struggles and you see them go through those hurdles, and so knowing that they can turn to you, knowing that you'll be there to get, especially in a coach role where it's a coach role, right, where the students rely on you
Right.
and
Yeah.
they do count on you.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I appreciate it, Susanna. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, Coach Olivas, right, is
Yes.
what your players call you. Thank you so much
Of
for
course.
being with us this afternoon. As always, count on us to support you in any way that you need. Keep us in mind, and LEC community, Coach Olivas, everybody. Any last thoughts or final
Yeah.
words?
Thank you again for what you guys are doing. It's great that we have something like this. I can only imagine in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, how something that's you guys have built now, how much bigger it's going to be, representing the Latino community. And thank you again, Delia and Susanna, for the nomination, for allowing me to speak. It's been a blast. You're right. I was nervous for no reason. I talk too much.
No, it's always really fun. I love doing these because I love hearing people's story and being like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, Coach Olivas, thank you so much. LEC community, have a good evening.
All right. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye, guys.
everyone.